I have the incredible honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker, and you may notice in the program that we have the same last name, and it's because we might be related, and she might be my favorite auntie. So my auntie, Debra, Deb Echo Hawk. When I think about my aunt, I remember a lot of different things. I've been so lucky and blessed to have her in my life, and when I think of her, it's almost like I have a feeling. You know how there's just like some people, when you get in a room with them, you feel something and you just can't wait to be around that feeling again. And when I'm around her, I can feel that she loves me and she cares about me and she loves our community and she cares about our community, and that is reflected in every single thing that she does. She manages the Pawnee Nation's Tribal Six program to work with our elders to deliver supportive and nutritional services, but she is also the Pawnee keeper of the seeds. She's working to bring back the ancestral seeds in a practice that feeds our own people. Through a partnership with our homeland, local university, the tribal college, the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project now has 18 gardens in Nebraska, our original homelands, and 7 gardens in Oklahoma, and conducts research with these programs to sustain the seeds. Don Warren, who I don't know if he's here yet, whenever I see Don is speaking somewhere, I always search it out because I'm inspired by him every time. He's one of my public health heroes. I recently got to hear him speak, and he said something to me that still resonates. I wrote it down. It's in every book that I carry with me. And it says, keep ceremony in what we do. And that is so important when we talk about our traditional seeds and when we talk about our traditional foods, is that it's just not something we carelessly leave to the side. It's not piled up in a storage cabinet. It is prayed for. It is cherished. It is part of our culture, and we keep it in ceremony. And my Aunt Deb has been instrumental in not only bringing ceremony back through the revitalization of our corn, but also ensuring that that ceremony continues in the way that we treat, the way that we talk about, and the way that we interact with our seeds, with our foods, and with our elders. So please welcome my Aunt Deb Echo Hawk.
Ya hey hi, ya hey hey ya. Ya hey ya hey ya hey hey ya. Ya hey ya hey ya hey hey ya. Hey ya hey ya. Hey ya hey. Good morning. You know what I'd like to hear? I'd like to hear a big hello in your own language. Everybody? All at once? 3, 2, 1? Oh, that's lovely. Noah. My name is Joshua Hukut. It refers to leading a horse inside a earth lodge to be given away. Like I do that every day. But anyway, I would just want to tell you a story. This is where our seeds began, in the lands of Nebraska and Kansas. This is where the Pawnees had cultivated crops that sustained us. Since time immemorial, I heard a young person say, I'm glad they used that term. Oh, yes. I love talking to Nebraskans. I tell them, yep, we're the first corn huskers. Our people, we lived in permanent villages. Actually, village is a minute term. It was actually cities. We had commerce. We had Dentalia shell all the way from the West Coast there. It was a real beautiful place, I'm sure, once upon a time. But overall, we do have our seeds, and we're thankful for that. And we do believe that we have, our seeds has a seed memory, which I'll explain later maybe. Okay, just a little background. Yep, this is one of our cities. And we had a lot. Some of them had as many as 30,000 people living in there. Earth lodges are really cool. I don't know if you've ever been in one before, but I was in one that we had built in 2010, and there was a major storm outside. All the awnings blew over everything outside, and we were inside listening to each other and didn't even realize the storm was taking place outside. That's how quiet and wonderful it was. We have in our past some legends, some chiefs, and for what they have done with our people in teaching us values. So these particular men are wearing peace medals, and that's really pretty much what I keep hearing, that we did love peace, and we loved building relationships. We had our protectors, as we do now, and our women. We always looked to the stars. They gave us guidance. They gave us stories. We are from the stars, our people. The first man came down, and he was wrapped in a buffalo robe. When he discarded it, a herd of buffalo sprung forth. The first woman was wrapped up in corn husk, having all the seeds of life within her. We went to school too. There was in Genoa an industrial school, and that's in Nebraska. It's where their gardens they had like 100 acres of our corn that they grew there, but that was mainly the chores. They taught the usual things, sewing and horseshoeing and useful things that were outside the scope of tribal ways. But that was in the 1860s. 1860s was a real hard time for our people. That's when several waves of I don't know how to say it. It's like a plague hit the people, and their immune systems were terrible, and it wiped out villages after villages. We lost a lot of people during the 1860s. But we had our doctors. They used our plants for healing, and we really believed that the ceremonies were necessary to trigger the healing power of those plants. So even when we get our medicines today, we pray over our medicines, thinking along the same lines, that ceremony and prayer helps. Okay, so we were in the beautiful land of Nebraska, Kansas. It was, my brother describes that land as the sea of grass, and it had everything we needed to live there. Of course, we had all these pressures, and we had, that's what this slide indicates, is how the territories were impacted by other tribes, and one of my seed preservation gardeners over here, he said he's always tickled when he hears about other tribes that refer to the three sisters, when he's convinced that they were one of these tribes that that came and actually grabbed some of that corn, just like present-day Nebraska. When you drive through Nebraska, there's nothing but fields and fields and fields of corn, and we always think, wow, you know, that looks beautiful, but of course it's not our corn anymore. It's genetic corn, but anyway, this in our homeland changes. We ceded a lot of our land. We retained a little bit of acreage on the Loup River. But, you know, our population went through a big demise, and, you know, being surrounded by hostile forces. I mean, we recognize that these other hostile forces were other tribes. They were just trying to do, you know, fend for their own people, but, of course, you know, we had a lot of fierce warriors. We stood our ground as best we could, but after the disease had taken over our families, that was no longer possible. We had an opportunity at one point to even have our warriors sign up with the Army. So we were like probably one of the very first tribes to even be recruited and be actual Army guys at that time. But they were wanting to retaliate against these other tribes. You know, that's the Sioux were fierce, and you know, they definitely wanted to retaliate against them. So yeah, there was no, you know, a lot of our menfolk signed up to be Pawnee Scouts. They defended the Union Pacific Railroad, the building of it, and there was not a loss to any of the workers. They did a good job in that protection. But and I'm really jumping through time here, but in around the 1873 and 4, that's when all the big decisions were made to move to Oklahoma Territory. So we had made that move in 4 different stages, and it was pretty hard to make that walk. There was a lot of loss of life, and basically when we did get back get down to Oklahoma, there was only 600 people that survived. Out of thousands. This is Oklahoma skies. That was one of the things that of the 600 they noticed, that when the storms hit, that the skies sounded different. The thunder was different. This picture is a picture of where we had a family that had saved the seeds that was actually had been hand carried down from Oklahoma. We brought all of our seeds with us, and what was nice about that is the families kept them all separate. And I didn't realize till later, really until just a few months ago, one of our chiefs had said that was such a sad time for us when we were moving down, because, you know, a lot of our seeds too were kept in bundles. And when some of the bundles were, the sacred bundles were, the keepers were died along the way, they just put those bundles up in the trees and gave them back to Atias, because they didn't know how to, the ones that were left, they didn't know how to take care of them, so they felt like they would just give it back to God. And, so there was a lot of our people that believed that we should not even carry on with growing our seeds anymore. Of course, I didn't get that message till last month. But so in the middle 80s, 1980s, I was living in Colorado, and my oldest brother, he's one of these real bossy guys, He thinks he knows everything, and kind of does. But he had given me some eagle seeds, that they had been found in a corner of a basement museum. And so he and myself and two brothers, we started growing it out. Well, my brother in Longmont, as soon as it got to the milky stage, they ate it. And then my oldest brother, who's all bossy, he delegated, and unfortunately, all the raccoons and deer loved it. And so when my corn got in the milky stage, I told my brother, I said, "Man, come over next week and I'll cook it all up. It's really going to be good, right? We'll try it." He said, "No, Deb. You can't have a single seed from that. You better start saving it, because this came from a museum. This is our Pawnee seed." I said, "Okay." So I started saving that and growing it, and I never tasted it. When we moved to Oklahoma, when I moved to Oklahoma, that was in '97, my cousin Annie and I, we were all buzzed, because by then we were corn inspired, and we went to ask everybody, well, hey, we're Pawnee, we have all these seeds, where are they? And so we had different ones respond, and so in '98, this beautiful lady, Nora Pratt, she's holding like 3 varieties of our corn, and she's praying over it, and she prayed over an hour, holding that corn, looking at it, feeling it, and talking about what it meant to our people one time, the ceremonies and everything, how it tasted, and she prayed that we would one day again eat it and enjoy it and have it for our people. So it was with that prayer that we started the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project. I say we. Back then it was more like the little red hen syndrome, but others have come around. It's nice now. But we were known for having at least 9 varieties. Our culture committee, our chiefs, they kept doing shout outs, bring in your seeds and turn them into Deb. And so we started getting all this seed back, and sometimes, it's just like only 10 kernels. It wasn't very much at all. This knife chief corn, we thought, that was kind of a striped corn, and we thought, all the other corn is solid, and it's a true variety. We thought, dang, that Dennis knife chief, he just went hog wild and must have cross-pollinated it and did some science whatever to it, and so we called it the knife chief corn. But turned out that we didn't have to. We found out later something else. This is one of the varieties that we have. It's really sad when you can't get any corn to germinate. And this was one of our speckled corn. A lot of tribes have found that their old varieties don't germinate anymore, and we might as well label it extinct. We tried and tried to germinate this, and we couldn't. But then we had kind of a miracle happen where our mother corn, and it's a long story because, we've given corn to different ones to try to grow it out, and we gave some red corn to a gardener who absolutely did her worst. She didn't water it, she didn't weed it, she didn't take good care of it. She just, had cats, and everybody just kind of mangled that corn. It was horrible, but she weakened it really bad in our Oklahoma clay dirt. And so when we sent it back up to Nebraska to grow that out, and we planted it with our mother corn, we were able to have a shout out. It was like the corn was screaming, I don't want to die, Ms. Miller tried to kill me, but, I want to live. And so it shouted out this variety that we hadn't seen and couldn't get to germinate. And so now we're in the middle of we've concluded 6 years of bringing this recessive trait. We're trying to bring it to a dominant trait. We have a plan, and it will probably take us another 5 years before we have it all materialize. But yes, it's pretty sad. There's another blue corn here that was in an elder's freezer for too many years. And we have a few others that are like that. But we realize now that if we're patient, we can bring it back. This gentleman here is Dr. Hugemeyer. He's chairman of a group of U.S. germplasm enhancement, MACE. Okay, so, he's one of these guys that wanted to take the DNA and extract it, put it in healthy corn, take some shortcuts. Well, we didn't listen to him, but he is a really good advisor, and he has helped us out in a lot of the things that we're doing. And at this point, one of the major things that he has done is to help us come up with a plant growth characteristics chart that we're able to collect data on all of our plants now. So he's really great in that respect, bringing the science, helping us to document what we have. And also, he was a professor over at University of Lincoln, and one of his students brought in some seeds. Well, it was that knife chief corn, right? Okay, so he said that the family had dug under their, Nebraska's one big sand pit, right? They had dug up about 6 feet of sand, and there was that buffalo skull that they found, and the buffalo hadn't been in that area since 1863. So here, that skull rattled. Some little creature had put a lot of seeds in that empty skull, and it was that knife chief corn. That's when the chief said, "Cross knife chief off and just call it striped corn now." So I said, "Okay, all right." So Dennis wasn't a mad scientist after all. Oh, here's a real sexy picture of corn. Right? This is the eagle corn that I started out with. It starts out, it's like a creamy color kernel, and then there's like a little dot that will appear on it, and as it matures, it gets like this. And when it's in the milky stage, it starts doing that, and then you throw it in the water, and all those eagles just take off. It just ends up being creamy. It's strange corn. I love it. We didn't even dry any of our corn. I didn't find this out until like around 2010 or so. No, 2011. We had a dance where they wanted to use that in ceremony, and so we dried some in the earth lodge that we built, and it was so crazy. We were at this dance, and so we didn't make enough to feed everybody, but half of the group got to eat. Dang it, I was sitting on the wrong side of the room. I'd been waiting since 1980-something to try this, so I was really crying to my sister because she was on the other side. And I said, oh man, I didn't even get to try it. And her friend, this tourist type, she said, oh, I didn't eat mine. And so dang, she let me have it. And I ran over to this elder's house, this one that did the most shout outs, for our corn. I said, Marlene, look. And we each had 1 teaspoon. Man, we acted like, I don't know. Anyway, we had a good time. Barely eating it, but it was real nutty-like, and it tasted really divine. Oh, anyway. But this is what it grows like. I mean, corn growing in the tassels. It's kind of it kind of surprised us that it would do something like that. And here's some of our varieties then that we have now. So all these years now, I can't even believe it, 40 years it's come and gone. So now we are trying to get these other generations to help out and do more and follow that passion and it's just wonderful to be able to think about our food, because we know our health was better back then. We didn't know what diabetes was, and so we want to start utilizing it in the ways that our people will appreciate it. So I'm the keeper of the seeds. That is a huge responsibility, let me tell you. I have done raged battle against little bugs that have drill bits on the end of their faces. And, it's something somebody's got to do. And I'm glad Electa is my assistant, because hey, I'm an old lady. One of these days she's going to have to take the reins. We have a seed blesser. Every year we try to have an elder that will start us off in a good way. And Laura May has been our seed blesser for a few years. She's a good one, and always there to help whatever we need. Here's Electa in the red, and I think that's Mikai. She's and then we're doing some prep for our garden that's at the Elders Center. And this is my little corn sister's hand, Ronnie O'Brien. She's holding up some painted like a horse beans, and of course the horse is in the background. We really love these beans. It's crazy when we first started growing them. We didn't know what they were, I mean, dang, they came up, they looked like green beans. We cooked them like green beans. We fed them to our people, and they said, oh my gosh, these are so stringy, I could floss my teeth with them. We didn't know that you had to cook them like pinto beans, So we started cooking them like pinto beans, and lo and behold, my sister, her middle name is Bino. And we discovered that, hey, these beans don't give you any gas, and we have tried them out on her 100 times. But it really works. This is, we have these tables that are so heavy, it takes like 4 people to lift them. I don't know, they were supposed to be portable. But we set them up, and we had like 15 of them set up, and we had to dry out all these beans. So that's just one sample of getting our youth inspired, right? We almost lost her. Okay, so I really slam dunked these photos together. My apologies, so I'm going to jump around. Oh yeah, guess what? We started in 1997. But this is my little corn sister. She kept calling the tribe. I was working for the education program at the time. And she was real persistent, because at the tribe, nobody knew anything about the corn at the time. And then she finally found me. We are always in communication now. It's like we talk to each other every day almost. And I even threatened to FaceTime her and put her on the spot in front of y'all. But we rely on each other a lot. But she started out with this little promise, that to our people, because she wanted to grow this corn for the museum that she's working for, and up in Pawnee, Nebraska. So you should have listened to our culture committee when we had these seeds, and we got some from bundles, that we had to wait 2 or 3 years before we would open them. And we only had like 20 seeds, and they were, the culture committee was debating. They were saying things like, well, Deb's not the best gardener in the world. What if she totally blows it, and loses all the crops and all that? We've got to trust someone. And we decided, okay, well, she's in our homeland. She says she grew up gardening. They decided to trust her. So that was a really awesome decision for us. We got a lot of seeds back, and we started our first garden with some youth. Not one kid here had ever set foot in a garden before, and so it was a good experience until one of the business council people said, that garden's an eyesore. I thought, what? Anyway, we've had to change things around quite a bit, but we're happy. We have Pawnee watermelon. The watermelon is pretty incredible. It's one that we share with our Riccara relatives. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Our time is up already. But this is something we feed our elders. We make a tea for that out of our silks. It's good to lower their blood pressure. This is Aaron over here. He's one of our pickers. He lives around here, 45 minutes away. This is one of our gardens in Nebraska. One of our harvests, a crazy picture. And you never know where the seeds are going to lead us. And we just want to encourage people to control your land. I'm proud of my niece. She went to a lease war and leased some land. Now she's going to start doing cover cropping. We know this is not good. Our elders are enjoying foods that sustain us. And this is some of our data work. Anyway, the story goes on. We have brochures. We do have some blue corn for the very first time ever available. I'm sure some of your tribes have done this before. But it's a wonderful crop. I also want to encourage people to watch out what you're doing. You know, I've had chiefs to advise me, and I really believe that we have a long ways to go, and we need to secure our seats. We really need to secure our seats. So I encourage you to repatriate your seats. You know, go to those museums and say, you know, hey, besides all these skulls and bones and stuff, we want our seeds. And it encourages me, even though they're old. You know, well, when they found Anasazi seeds that were in pottery, that for no telling how long they were viable, you know, get those seeds back. They belong to us all, and use them. So there's some good terms nowadays. Instead of repatriate your seeds, they matriate your seeds. That means, come on, women, get out there. So there's a lot of opportunities, but we are looking at strategies to secure seeds before you exploit them or give them away or decorate tables at conferences or, just Monsanto's out there, folks.